Elizabeth Mary Isherwood, though more commonly referred to as simply Mary, was a 60-year-old woman from Wolverhampton, often described as being incredibly sporty, an avid golfer and hiker. She worked in the police force where she met her future husband Clive, to which she had a son named Craig. It was in the early 1990s, however, when she then realised that she was gay, leaving the police force in 91 and splitting from her husband, though they remained on good terms. Mary moved to London around this time, beginning work in the Post Office Investigation Service, which is where she met her new partner Rosie, and they actually moved away to New Zealand together. However, in the early 2000s, the duo would return back to the UK, where Mary began work as a carer. Mary and her ex-husband Clive had previously owned the Plas Talgarth timeshare holiday complex near Machynlleth in Wales, but had recently sold it. But regardless, she still enjoyed staying there from time to time. But sadly, in September 2017, she would never check out again. On September the 22nd, she met up with Clive for a drink in the evening, and the next day she travelled to the holiday complex. It's believed that she checked into the resort, went for a swim, and then headed to her room. Mary would usually go with some friends, but unfortunately none were available, so she decided to go alone instead. The staff provided her with some vouchers, but unfortunately she would never end up using them. Investigators would later find her belongings still untouched and unpacked in her room. But what happened next is merely up for speculation. Either during the late hours of the evening on September the 23rd or the early hours of the 24th, Mary got out of bed, presumably to use the toilet in the ensuite bathroom. She most likely made it there, but on her way back she possibly took a wrong turning and somehow ended up in the airing cupboard, a very confined room used in the UK to dry clothes and linen. Once she realised her mistake, Mary attempted to get back out, but the door handle came off in her hand and the door wouldn't open. Mary was now locked inside the airing cupboard in pitch black darkness, completely naked, with no means of escape. She did begin to bang and scream for help, and many other guests did later admit that they heard this banging, but they ruled it down to maintenance work being done on the building and didn't report it. Similarly, a neighbour claimed to have heard a series of loud thuds coming from the building and was going to report it if it continued past 5 o'clock on the afternoon of the 24th. But sadly, this is when the noises stopped, most likely as Mary completely gave up from exhaustion and lost hope. Inside the airing cupboard, she had clawed away at the door to try to get out, to no avail. She clawed away at the brickwork and even through the plasterwork, but found herself only making her way towards a brick wall. She tore down shelving inside the cupboard to try to find a way out, but it all seemed hopeless. She then broke down a pipe and attempted to use it to break down the door, which also failed. But she managed to use the pipe to continue attacking the wall, desperately trying to find an escape. During this, sadly, due to the pipe being removed, the airing cupboard began pouring freezing cold water. Due to the circumstances, Mary's body temperature was actually quite high due to the adrenaline, which is why it didn't take effect right away. During her attempts, she actually did make a second hole, but came across a picture that was on the other side of the wall. Sadly, if she had continued fighting, she would have been able to escape. But she didn't, possibly believing that this was another solid brick wall that she was unable to get past. All banging stopped around 5 PM on the Sunday night, which led most guests to believe that the maintenance work had been completed. But in reality, Mary had given up hope, and her body temperature suddenly plummeted due to the loss of adrenaline, eventually succumbing to hypothermia. However, despite not being seen or heard from since checking in, her body still wasn't discovered until a week later, when she failed to check out as planned. Furthermore, a guest in the apartment below hers reported water leaking through the ceiling, leading to staff investigating, and making the shocking discovery, devastating her family and loved ones, who described her as being incredibly fit and strong, and that if anyone would have been able to escape that cupboard, it would have been her. The coroner's report claimed that Mary had passed away in the early hours of her first night's stay, despite the loud banging being heard the following day. But the pathologist who examined the evidence claimed that, based on the holes in the walls, it's possible that she may have actually been trapped, fighting for survival for days. Her heartbroken son Craig has actually sued the holiday resort for negligence, for failing to check the safety of the door handle inside the cupboard.
My fit and healthy mum had years of a very happy life ahead of her. The legal action is not about the compensation, because how can you put a value on a life? It is about the fact that this should never have happened. I just want the company to admit that they made a mistake in not checking the door properly and make sure that this cannot happen to anyone else.
This was quite a horrific tragedy, and there is no amount of money which can compensate Mr. Isherwood and his 2 children for the loss of a much-loved mother and grandmother. But we believed that this was a tragedy which could and should have been avoided. It is impossible to imagine the distress Mrs. Isherwood must have gone through as she tried to free herself from the cupboard. The central issue is whether the company was negligent in not correctly maintaining the door at the property, which we believe to be the case.
The spokesman for the holiday resort has refused to speak publicly on this case, leaving the world and the loved ones of Mary Isherwood hopelessly seeking answers. Hello guys, this is Rob from Seeking Answers. I really hope you enjoyed that episode. If you do want to see more, please consider donating to Patreon or clicking that join button below to become a channel member. Unfortunately, YouTube's monetization doesn't really cater to the content that we make, so we do need all the help that we can get. I also realise that not everyone is able to give a monthly payment, so there is now a PayPal link in the description if anyone does want to donate a one-off payment. Doesn't matter the amount, any amount is appreciated. And if you do a one-off payment, you'll be able to request a case for us to cover, and it will really go towards helping the channel out and continuing to grow the community. Any amount is appreciated, and it will go towards keeping this channel alive and making more content, going on location more. You will get perks in exchange, and you will help really give this channel the boost it needs. Thank you for all of your support, and tune in next week for another video.